Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for stopping by once again. It's been quite a bit of activity here over the last couple of weeks. I've had a number of people come through town. It's been very interesting talking to them. I have more people coming soon, so it's interesting to see the initial people who were first arriving. And it's very encouraging that they're coming, and so far, so good. Now, we still are a little concerned for those of you who are coming down in the next month or two that we don't have a major spike here that leads us to have to close down again. Now, so far, we're doing pretty well, but in the last couple of days, there's been a jump, and we've been warned basically that we can expect an increase in later in November and into early December. It's just a simple matter here that not that everything is open, pretty much everything is open. Very few things remain. We're going to have more cases. We're going to get more infections. It's just as simple. People begin to relax. We've been very good here about the masks especially, and pretty darn good about keeping distance in a reasonable meter or two in the process, especially when we queue up, when we line up for something. But that's beginning to sag, and the masks are still being worn. Good. But, and there's not any real trouble. It's just that people, as I say, they're relaxing and getting back into trying to go back to where things were before. And hopefully that's going to work without a vaccine, but it's pretty questionable as well that it can. We'll see. And whatever is. My only concern is that we don't have to close down again. And it's not just a problem here, of course. We sit and we read about, today I was reading about the situation in Italy, in Lombardy, and particularly in the north of Italy, and how infections are rising rapidly all over again. This is elsewhere in Europe as well, and of course in the U.S., there's a lot of that going on. State after state is setting, again, rising faster, and some setting records for infections. New York, again, seems to be rising. Areas that have already had their problems and then it subsided seem to be coming back. I mean, all of this is beyond our control. All we can do is watch it and hope that the folks get things under control sufficiently. Now, in coming down, Americans particularly are having problems, basically because it's difficult for them to get these tests and the results of them within 48 hours prior to departure, and they pay an arm and a leg, I might add, for them to do way more than they pay down here or anywhere else, as far as I know. So without that test, it's difficult. So I've had a couple who came down, I know them well, and they had taken the test up north, and they really hoped, they're in Florida, hoped to have the results before they departed. If they weren't quite ready, there's no guarantee, and they're going to send an email, and it will be up on the internet, and so on and so on. Well, they didn't get an email. So they came ahead, and they got tested here, and he was negative, which is fine, and she was positive, which is not. So she had to go into a hotel room, and so they both ended up in hotels, but different hotels, because, of course, he can't stay with her when if he's uninfected and she's infected. So very frustrating to them because she's a nurse and she knows she's been in contact with it, and she feels, perhaps justifiably, that this is likely to happen in some tests, and when in fact she's not positive at all. Well, anyhow, the next morning they get up and in pops the email saying your results are up on the web, and they go to the web and they're both negative, so they're both fine, and they presented that, and out the door she went from that hotel, and they went on about their business. So that was just a one-night affair for them. But it's that sort of thing that's very frustrating, and it's not easy to know exactly what to do about that. I've encouraged that we stretch it to 72 or even 96 hours. Well, that actually happened earlier, but they're being tough at the moment, basically because the news just isn't good. All right, it's just that simple out of North America and Europe. And for our good and their good and everybody's good, we're trying to be more cautious. We'll see what happens. But so far, no panic or anything of that sort. But I do believe the next week or two we will be seeing some increase. We'll see whether that's enough to cause problems. They're trying to be very flexible here. It's a challenge. We have so many hospitals and so many health staff and so forth. So anyhow, right at the moment, we're doing fine. And let us hope that we will continue doing that. Meantime, there is some interesting ways things that are changing here. I've noticed, but no statistics or anything until recently when MasterCard did a survey here in Panama, and they found that 85% of us now seek out shopping opportunities in our neighborhoods, as opposed to getting in the car and driving somewhere or whatever. And that's so good to hear, because I often tell people, first thing you do when you move here is, instead of just going around, as people do, drive around, go to Price Smart, which is our Target, Walmart sort of store, or one of the many supermarket chains and so on. I mean, they're good to know, but walk up and down the streets in your neighborhood and stick your nose in anywhere that looks interesting. People are friendly. They're not going to worry as long as it's a business. And you'll find that little tiny hole in the wall there might have all sorts of hardware. Some of our stores, our little tiny convenience stores, have been around forever. They're called chinos because they're very frequently operated by Chinese Panamanians who've been here for 150 years running these little stores. And it's amazing how much they have that they fit into every corner of the store. I mean, I think it's wonderful, because then you don't have to go to all the trouble of going to a major store as long as you have one of these around. But you can't tell by looking from the outside. So you just have to walk in and smile at everybody, say buenos dias or whatever, and just wander around looking. Nobody's going to be upset by it, of course. And discover. And then look in the little restaurants, or we call them fondas, and they're simple places where people go for lunch, and inexpensive lunches or breakfast or whatever. Well, try it out. They're fine. I mean, they may only be $3-4 for whatever it is you're getting, but it'll be they're clean. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. And you begin to learn what there is available and simple stuff around you. There'll also be other places. There's just a lot going on, and a lot of little stores, and maybe this place is one where you can have keys made, this sort of stuff, useful information. So people are beginning to do that now, and that's good. That's good for Panamanians, too, who get into the habit of just getting in their car and going somewhere. Now they're looking around their own neighborhoods, and it's just so much has changed over the last couple of decades. Some of them are still getting used to all the changes, even in neighborhoods they've lived in for many years. So that's going on. Now, some of you may have heard that we've had a hurricane. Well, what happened was there was a hurricane, a very substantial one, ETA, E-T-A, that hit Nicaragua, and I understand is a Category 4, which is an extremely powerful, devastatingly powerful hurricane. Now, mind you, Nicaragua is not next door to Panama. Costa Rica comes between us and Nicaragua. And this hit Nicaragua and Honduras, which is a little bit further north. And the damage was great, huge. We also got hit by the edge of it. Now, we're not set up for hurricanes because we don't have hurricanes. And what hit us was really more likely to be a tropical storm, where the steady winds would not have been over 75 miles an hour. But I don't know, and it's really not the point. It was a lot less than they had to suffer elsewhere up the coast. Now, keeping that in mind, though, this is also very mountainous territory in the western part of the country. As many of you know, it's Bocas del Toro, which is not mountainous. Those are islands, but Boquete, Volcan, and so forth in Chiriquí province. I'm going to stop for just a minute here. I'll be right back. I'm back now. Yes, it was a very difficult situation. And because of the mountainous areas of the far west, we had a lot of landslides. Those landslides took out farms, they took out homes, and they killed people. We had a number who died. It was it's a great tragedy, and we were very upset about it. Thankfully, it's a small country. We were able to move into the area very quickly to start to help and to clean up. Many people who live and work here in Panama City have family there, so you can bet they were off on the road. Because, again, small country, we can drive there, and getting out there to try to do what they can to help and see to their families' well-being. We have holidays in November, and some of them came over the last week and a half, and this has been helpful because that gave people free time to deal with it. So it could have been much worse for us than it was. We certainly don't want to put ourselves on the same level as the people in Nicaragua and Honduras. That's grossly unfair. But it nonetheless was a mess, and we hope that they never get hit again with a Category 4 hurricane, not just because we get clipped badly when that happens, but because it's just simply devastating, and that is one country that is not in a position to deal with a disaster like that, neither Nicaragua nor Honduras for that matter. So, okay, that happened, and it's very unfortunate. But other than that, we continue to keep making progress here. We just keep moving along, hoping for the best. I get pleased sometimes to see how the results go, but we still have a ways to go, and who knows what the future holds. Oh, one thing that. The visa for the Friendly Nations visa that I'd raised the question we talked about in the last video. Still no sign whatsoever of that. It has not risen. It's not there. If it's there, it's still in some very early stage, and I'm not going to be talking about it anymore until there's reason to talk about it. But it does get repeated. I just heard it recently, and what irritates me is one of these websites that they have money, they promote it, and they have large numbers of viewers and so forth, and professional approaches and all that stuff, and they cover a number of nations, and they're just one of them, and they'll pick this up, as this one particular site did, as a country that was going to drop one of its residency visas, one of its very best ones, and all this stuff. And that's the image right off the bat you get in the beginning when you see the video and you see the title and the initial background. But then they come to us and they talk about, well, of course, this isn't final, and this is just, so on and on. The same sort of stuff that's been said from the beginning here is no one is willing to say this is actually going to happen. It has any evidence it's going to happen. It's just only a concern, and it's very, very possible, and so on. But for someone like that, who comes across as authoritative, the way they're dressed, about the professionalism of the ongoing video, about the large number of subscribers that the gentleman has, and so forth, he's expected to be very knowledgeable, and so they take it very seriously, and people, and I know from emails I get later, that people take this seriously, and they believe it. They believe that it's actually happening. They take it one step too far, really. It isn't because he said to do that, they just do it. And yet, what amazes me is that these people can be such authorities on these things, and apparently they don't have anybody they can call. They can pick up the phone and call, or drop a WhatsApp or an email or whatever to in Panama and find out what's actually going on. They just repeat something that started in a Facebook page here and got spread around and has gone on since then. That's how things go viral, but that's also how bad news, or the wrong news, or fake news, if you like, goes viral too. And it really irritates me that if you're asking for people's money and you're pretending you're a major authority and what have you, and you're talking like this about something you obviously know nothing about and you have no one to check with, you're an authority? Why am I listening to you? So excuse my little eruption there. But people, the rest of us who have to deal with Panama have to deal with this sort of thing, and that leads to messages of misunderstanding. And then sometimes we lose people for no good reason at all, just because they get that feeling that it's over now in Panama and they don't want people anymore. Oh, please. Anyhow, that's enough for tonight. I'm happy to have had a chance to talk to you again. I look forward to doing it, some more of it. And I do have more people coming down. I do look forward to seeing them. Oh, I will say very briefly in this regard, if you do want to see me, feel free to let me know you're coming. However, the general rule of thumb here is once you do that, I'll just respond and say that's great. And then when you, a few days before you leave, just confirm by email because things can change. And in this COVID period, things can change. So do that. And then when you're here and you're actually settled in place, then we get in touch with each other and we set a time where we can meet. And so I don't try to schedule these things way in advance because there's no way to know what the future holds right at the moment for all of us. I mean, it could be simple as airlines closing down flights or something. You never know. So in that note, just rest assured, though, I do look forward to meeting you when you come on down. If I can be of any use to you, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. So thanks again, and I'll be talking to you again soon, I hope. I also hope to have a little newsletter out here shortly for Retirement Wave members. So if you're a Retirement Wave member, that should be coming out shortly. And by shortly, as you know from me, means anytime in the next 10 days. I'll do my best to get it out, though.